who is an entrepreneur and what is needed for personal preparation. And then we're going to talk about your business. And these apply to all businesses, no matter what area you're looking at getting into. The first two critical questions are really, do you have support, personal support, and have you set your startup limits? So about, I know for me personally, I have my own business, and it's really important to have your family and friends understand what you are doing with this business that you are in. And it is a business. If you have a business plan, it's helpful to share your business plan with them to demonstrate that you're really serious about what you're doing. Because, this is going to take time out of your life. If you're working full or part-time, becoming an entrepreneur is essentially adding another full-time job to your schedule. So making sure that they understand, if you have personal commitments, like let's say you have a pet or you have children, you've got to have help, with those aspects of your life, because you do need time to devote to growing this business. So making sure that you have personal support for what you're doing is really important. I've talked with entrepreneurs who don't have that support, and it's really, really difficult. Understanding where you want to take the business too. That life management plan, talking about how does it fit with not only with your schedule and your life, but also with your significant other in the other people's lives. Second question, I often talk to people who say, where can I get money to start my business? And the fact is, it's going to come out of your pocket, 9 times out of 10. Or we have another advisor that talks about, as you grow your customer base, that's really funding the growth of your business as well. So your customers are funding your business and your growth. Do you have cash that you can invest in this business? So sitting down and looking at a personal budget, we've got templates that we can share with you. If you don't do a personal budget now, we can share that template with you so you can understand where your money is going currently and what you have available to grow your business. And then looking at the business plan, what are the startup costs for your business? Often people think, well, I've got a virtual business, it's not really costing me anything. Having an online presence will cost some money. Having business insurance costs money. So there are costs that people don't think about when they're starting a business that you do need to account for and make sure that you've got that covered. If you're going to borrow money, and we'll talk about the reality of borrowing money these days, what are you willing to assume? Are you willing to give up part of your company to get cash into the business? Are you looking at, is the sky the limit as far as what the amount of money that you would want to borrow to start this business? So any kind of business loan that you take out is going to be, you will be personally liable for that business loan. And I talk about that because sometimes people think, well, if the business goes bankrupt or I just close the business, that dissolves that debt. That's not how it works. When you take out a business loan, you are personally responsible for that loan. And, setting limits on the amount of time that you will spend trying to make your business a viable and successful entity is the other thing to consider. When you think about, I made the statement about it's like having another full-time job. It's all about, where you want to take your business and how much time you want to devote to it. So if you say I've got 4 hours to put into the business every week, then you have set a limit. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be successful with 4 hours. It's quite possible you'll be very, very successful, and that's all that the business needs time-wise. So it's just understanding what do starting this business, what does it take financially, and time-wise to get it off the ground? So once you've set those limits, and particularly on the dollar amount, write it down and stick to it. If you think, well, I put 10,000, but I really need 20, so I'm gonna change it to 20. There was a reason why you put the 10,000 there at the beginning. Unless you've got more information and you now understand, oh my gosh, it takes 20,000, maybe now is not the right time for this business. As we say to people that we talk to and advise, this is your business. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong for your business. It's really about, is this the right time for you? Is for all of these factors. So if you say, I see what it takes now, now's not the right time, that's your decision, and then you've got a runway to plan for when it is the right decision. So gathering information, if you go through this presentation and you think, I'm not ready, you still have this information. You have SBDC advisors to help you get to the point where you do want to launch your business. The personal traits of a successful entrepreneur or founder is number one, being able to take in feedback. Even, for the amount of business experience that I have, I'm learning new things every day. Every person that I talk to introduces me to new ideas that I didn't think about before. And I do get advice on my own business, which I try to take in and make sure that there's lots of things that I don't do right now, which I know I need to do. For example, my social media, I need to do more regularly, and it takes time. So, being coachable is really important. Being able to adapt to change. We saw that a big time during COVID, where you saw restaurants that couldn't have people come in the door and sit down and have a meal pivot to delivery, where they never did delivery before. That's kind of an extreme example, but a smaller example is, I built this business to sell to, let's say, senior women, and then you find out the product is more popular with teenagers. So that's a pivot. And now my marketing is going to be aimed toward teenagers instead of senior women, who I thought was going to be the primary buyer of that product. Do you share information? We mentioned the chamber, being able to be a part of a community. Culpeper is a really strong community that is supportive of the small businesses that are here. So building those relationships is really key to helping grow your own business and launching your own business. Communicating in a supportive and an effective manner. Can you demonstrate leadership and not, take a breath and be able to digest information and not be reactive to a situation. And then having willpower and being disciplined enough to, if you're going to devote 4 hours a week to the business, that time is blocked out for that business growth. The reality, I don't hear this so much anymore, but maybe 10 years ago, people would say, I want to go into my own business so I can just do what I want and I don't have to work so hard. That the reality is you're going to be working harder than ever, but it's your own thing. It's your own entity. So you could be working 12 to 16 hours a day, every day of the week, holidays, evenings. I'm working Mother's Day, but you know what? I had the opportunity, so I will be spending Mother's Day working. Anyway, do you know how to operate in chaos? You can plan things out and make sure that, as best you can figure out what's gonna come up and are you going to assess a situation or drive a situation, and things will still happen. So just understanding how you operate in uncertainty can be helpful. Recognizing that, this is a situation that is chaotic. Maybe you say to yourself, I don't do good in chaos. But just recognizing that, it can help you get through it. So are you able to stay calm? I think, we've been through a lot of life experiences, especially with the pandemic. I think it's taught many of us to realize that there is calm on the other side, that sometimes we have to go through some pretty challenging times and things do get better eventually. Your personal finances and credit, the recommendation, when you look at how much it's going to cost your business to stay in business on a monthly basis, the recommendation is to have 3 to 6 months of cash that can carry the operation through. And we can look at some of the financial sheets that we have, templates that we can share with you to see what that looks like. We can work through those with you as well. This, lenders want 10 to 30% in cash of an amount that you want to borrow. I left that up there. The reality is, if you're a brand new business, banks will not typically lend to brand new businesses. There are other sources of capital. Our Central Virginia SBDC office is hosted by the Community Investment Collaborative. And they are a lender that does lend to startup businesses. They will do microloans up to $50,000. And similar to a bank, there are criteria that they look at, like your credit score, and other things before they will lend you that money. So if you wanted to borrow $1,000 up to $50,000, Community Investment Collaborative, or CIC, is available for that. I left this here because you may decide you want to take a personal loan out, either against your home, against some other asset that you have. But as far as a business loan, banks are pretty much off the table as far as lending for a new business. Setting up an emergency fund that is either your cash reserves for a business, that's your rainy day fund, can, initially that and the owner's draw from your business can be pretty small. But we always encourage people to keep that in mind as you're planning how much this business is going to cost. You want to have some amount of money left at the end of the month to pay yourself and to put back into the business. And many startups are self-funded. So, we can help you put together a very basic business plan. You can bring that to your friends and family, and you can present in a professional manner what you're doing and ask them to financially support your business. If you're not comfortable with that, don't do it. But it is a highly utilized source of funding for startups. If you do that, I encourage you to have a written agreement with your family member or friend. They may say, this is a gift, just take it. Well, you definitely want to have some kind of, I would recommend some kind of payback, either financial payback with interest, payback financially with no interest, or they're taking, they're getting soap for their investment for the rest of their life. Whatever you want to craft with that other person is up to you. There's no right or wrong. The end game is that there's no hard feelings at the end of this whole thing. If you go out of business and they gave you a significant amount of money, you just don't want to have any hard feelings if, that extreme scenario happened. Not that it would, but you just want to maintain the relationship first before, um, you know, before the monetary equation comes into that. So, knowing your personal monthly expenses, is your credit score above 650? This is a typical requirement for any kind of lending, not on a friends and family basis, but for people like CIC or a bank. Your credit score has got to be above 650. And then separating your personal and your bank account. So establishing a bank account for the business so you can keep all of your expenses separate from commingling accounts. The skills that your business will need, there is a lot on a business owner, a personal business owner. All of the things, if you work for a corporation or a larger company, there are people that take care of different things in the business for you, for the total. That now is all on you. However, if you have, need help with, we mentioned record keeping and accounting, social media marketing, HR, those types of, everything on the list there, you can hire out. If you have money available to hire out and have somebody do this for you, then it's, I would highly recommend doing that. Especially if it's something that you absolutely do not want to do. I have worked with clients that say, I'm not going to go do social media. I'm not going to manage my website. We encourage people at least know a little bit about each one of those topics because you don't want to be taken for a ride. You want to know what the person is talking about when they're recommending things for your business. It's still your business. So, and like I said, we've got a list of service providers. They are not SBDC employees. They are professionals that you can hire to do these functions for you. And they're on our list because we've either worked with them personally and know that they will, treat small businesses fairly and will offer a good price to smaller businesses. And they themselves are usually small businesses as well. We're going to talk about the 9 big C's of business success. So we're going to go through each one of these on these successive slides. And I had mentioned for us at SBDC, one of the things that we see entrepreneurs frequently forget about is their customer. I mean, that's the person that's going to purchase their service or product. So understanding who is going to be their target market is a big portion of what we work with our clients on. Who they are, where they are, how much do they buy, all of that will inform how you're going to market your product, how you're going to reach your demographic that you're after. We have people tell us, I did a survey on Facebook and everybody said they're going to buy my product. Well, that's nice, but you really need to meet face to face with people and describe what you're actually offering. Find out if your price point is correct. What kind of other, like for a newsletter, what other information are they looking for in that newsletter that's going to make them open that newsletter every month? So identifying what they really care about is going to keep them engaged. So if you say everybody is going to buy my product, that's generally not true. There is a specific demographic that is going to buy your product. Credit, we talked about credit briefly. I work with clients who come in, they want to get a loan and their credit score is not very good. So we will work with them on various ways that they can get their credit up to a acceptable level. So, yeah, that's credit. Character, how are you viewed in the marketplace? Are you viewed as a thoughtful professional? Are you someone who people would like to have on their team? Are you coachable, willing to connect and learn from others? Things that we've already kind of hit on. Capacity is your personal ability to repay any money that you've borrowed. So, as I mentioned before, any of the debts from the business you would be personally liable for. That's your personal capacity, and then the business capacity is how much cash the business generates. So, we look at cash flow. Once you get into business, you're going to be generating things like cash flow reports, a balance sheet, your P&L for the month. So those things all together will tell you, is the money making business, or excuse me, is the business making money? And, what kind of repayment can you make on the loan? What kind of cash can you take out of it for your own living expenses? Collateral is something that you can offer a lender should the business default on a loan. So often it can be a vehicle, it could be a building, it can be IRAs and CDs, although I wouldn't want to do that. But those are the types of collateral that are typically seen for bank loans. This is kind of a snapshot of a personal budget. Does anybody in the room do a personal budget right now?
I use every dollar.
Okay, great. I started this back when my kids started going to college. So I had a lot of outflow. I had to make sure the income was keeping up with all that. The business cash flow or budget looks very similar. So we split this up. You have startup costs for starting the business. And so for example, if for soaps, startup might be, if you had to buy a big vat to make the soap in, that would be a startup cost that you needed before you went into business. And then on this cash flow, there is a column for startup costs where you add that into your cash flow. These templates that we give out to our clients, I like them a lot because often the expenses are things that people didn't think about to add to their cash flow sheet. So general liability insurance is a big one. Accounting services, advertising. And I always encourage people, even in bad times, keep advertising because that marketing expense will pay off in the end. So these are for any type of business plan that you do. If it's a very basic business plan, a one-page business plan for just getting started, and we'll talk about those toward the end of this presentation. You still need to do the financials. You need to understand where you're headed financially because, there's lots of reasons why, but the other thing that we do with clients is called a break-even analysis. And this ensures that you are charging enough money for the product or service that you're offering. So frequently people will look at direct costs. How much does it cost for me to make, let's say you're making a candle. So the wax that goes into it, the fragrance, the wick, the jar that I'm going to put it in, the box that I package it in. They don't look at how much does it cost me to be at the farmer's market every month. What does it cost for me to have my website? Those are all back end indirect costs that don't vary with the number of products that you are creating that need to be paid every month anyway. So the break-even analysis tells you if I'm selling this product at $250 and my indirect costs are $8,605 a month, I need to sell 57 of those in order just to cover my indirect costs. Conversely, if I price the product at $214, so I'm reducing the price, $214.23, I would need to sell 75 in order to cover my indirect costs. So this break even can be a little bit confusing. We're happy to work, through it with you. For startup businesses, I'll be honest, it's a much simpler cash flow. Your indirect costs are much smaller and fewer. And anyway, this is definitely, you want to make sure that you're pricing your product in order to make money. The industry that I work in is the craft industry. And I talk to people frequently who have not built in indirect costs. You're selling on Etsy and Etsy is charging you 10%. You need to build that into the cost of the product that you're selling on Etsy. Cash flow is really your business survival. It is, if you end up at the end of the month and you're cash negative, it causes a lot of strain and worry on you as a person. So you want to make sure that you're profitable regularly in order to keep up with your expenses. So planning ahead can help a lot. Assuming there's going to be some unexpected things coming your way, but planning can be a very good hedge at maintaining cash flow. Capital is your cash investment. In general, all entrepreneurs are going to have to put money into the business unless they have a gift that appears out of the sky. But that's the reality, is that you are going to have to put up some kind of cash in order to get your business started. In the lending industry, lenders are not going to put up any money unless the owner puts money up. So there's going to be we can talk about, SBA loans that require very little down from the owner, but it still requires money down from the owner. Because, the reality is the people that are lending you money, they are there to make money as well. So conditions can result in turmoil or opportunities for your business. Right now we're living in a time that has a lot of turmoil. The biggest thing that's impacting most businesses right now are fuel costs. So trying to build in some kind of hedge for increased costs based on, what's most likely to happen. There are lots of people that do forecasting. If you have a Charles Schwab account, they'll give you a forecast for the year. Visa also does forecasting on where they think the economy is going and what things are going to be impacting small businesses. If you see an advertisement for, something like the one I look at regularly is Visa, with their economic outlook. If you just search online for economic outlook, you can see who's publishing and if you want to subscribe to their newsletter. Commitment. I think, talked quite a bit about this. But just keeping in mind, I think it's good to write down why you got into the business in the first place, why it's your passion, and keeping that in mind when things get a little difficult. If you've tried and failed in business before, I mean, that, it's like in business, generally people will say, well, if you haven't been fired, you're doing something wrong. But, trying and failing is typical for an entrepreneur. Sometimes you don't have the right product or you haven't focused it on the right target market. All of those things you can work through and come to the right solution for you. And other times you can say, it just wasn't the right time and I'm gonna move on and do it at a later point. So, you are the business. People are gonna view you as, especially when you have a very personal product, like all three of you are talking about, you're gonna continue to be the business, even though, you may get employees and get very established, but typically the founder is gonna be highly associated with your business throughout. We're gonna talk about the business itself. And it sounds like you all have a concept already developed for your businesses, but typically where they come from, a problem you've experienced or things that your friends and family have talked about, someone comes to you with an idea and you say, hey, that's great. Through your education and training, hobbies and personal interests, or your current jobs, you see something that's lacking that could be added to the equation. So can you turn your product into a business or your idea into a business? You've got to have a very strong value proposition. So knowing what you're selling to what market, the market's got to be accessible to you. Having the ability to manage the business and then having access to capital. We talked about a lot of people that I talk to have worked full time and they're putting aside money to start their own business. So they've got a runway financially to get this business off the ground. Does your business idea make sense? If you are, that old adage selling ice cubes to the northern climes, that's a hard sell. If you've got a product that everybody already has, then does it make sense to really start that business? So really identifying, I have talked to many people about my business, about, am I making the right products? Is this what is attracting people to me and my business? And my friends are giving me ideas for new things to make that are becoming my biggest sellers.
I had a question. The audience that you speak to, apparently you do this a lot, you're very polished, I appreciate it. Are a lot of people looking to step away from what they've been doing and start a new business from day one, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week? Or are they looking to do a moonlight side business and get it started eventually? I guess that's a way to.
Yeah. It's typically, someone's either lost their job and they say, I want to go off and do my own thing. Or they have no concept. Like I said, they come in and they say, where can I get money to start my business? Money that I don't have to pay back.
Yeah.
And that's not there anymore. That was one thing that COVID gave out, the government gave out a lot of money during COVID to keep people in business. And some people think that money is there all the time. And it was just a one-off. They don't do that. And the grant area, the grant arena has really shrunk since COVID as well. So this idea that somebody's going to give me money to start my great idea is a misconception on the part of a lot of people. People that come and talk to the SVDC before they quit their job, keep their job and are putting aside money for, and it's trying to get the business going before they quit their day job. We don't encourage anybody to quit their day job. If you don't have a savings account that can support you for a year. To get your business off the ground, we don't encourage people to just quit and start a business. There are so many people, especially post-pandemic, so many people that are trying to get their own business off the ground, whether it's part-time or full-time. It's just a whole different, this gig economy that people talk about, rather than being an employee. I guess I am concerned because what happens in the future, because, unless you're paying into Social Security, previously you had some kind of pension that you could get from a company, a 401k or plus Social Security. Social Security is not really gonna support you, so you've got to build in some kind of savings if you're gonna be self-supporting.
So you're seeing a lot more desire for entrepreneurship today than before COVID.
Yeah.
Why did COVID change the mindset?
Because it just disrupted the whole system. There were people that lost their jobs because they thought they would have a secure job. And
They lost confidence in big business or the
Yeah.
big system.
right,
Interesting.
So going into like when you were talking about unemployment. So if you are, this goes more into taxes, but if you're running your business, I mean, like, let's just say me, right? And when I get my S corp eventually, I'm gonna start, give myself a W-2 so that I pay into taxes. Will I also be paying into unemployment where I'll eventually be able to get it? That's part of my taxes
you'll
there.
be an employee when you're a corporation.
Okay, so that will take care of those taxes, but as far as like currently I'm an LLC, I'm not. Okay,
But I would encourage you to put some money aside in savings for your retirement.
oh, yeah.
And the rainy day fund, I guess you can buy unemployment insurance as a single entity.
Yeah.
This is National Small Business Week, and so there are a bunch of webinars that are going on all week, and I was listening to the IRS talk about paying quarterly taxes and things like that. Okay. So again, start with the problem, not the solution. Is really identifying what are people looking for in the marketplace, not I will build it and they will come. How do people describe your product or service to you? That helps you craft your marketing message to that group of people. For example, if you're gonna let's say you're doing personal bookkeeping versus, you wanna target individual business owners. You wanna do just as a, hypothetical. That's the people that you need to survey. And where are they? What kind of language resonates with them? So maybe with them, it's more personal, tailored. Those are some words that you would use with that market. And say you only want to work with corporations that are 1,000 employees or more, hypothetically. There's a whole different universe that group lives in and different words that they use to market your business to them. So, kind of goes into, does the customer see it the way that you do? So you really do want to define who your customer is and how they view your product. The more focused you are, the more successful you will be, because you start speaking that same language as that customer. And you can just make a very targeted statement for those people. Your pricing becomes easier because you understand what the market's willing to pay. And just the marketing and sales aspect of it falls into place if you have your concept fully developed. What are you selling? Being very we have some pitch competitions that are going on in our region, so I'm reading business plans from different entrepreneurs. And the executive summary, which is supposed to be written from the rest of the plan. I'll read the executive summary and I will get to the end and I'll say, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they sell. I don't know what their market is. So what we suggest to people when you're doing a business plan or planning for the start of your business, just do a brain dump. Everything that's in your brain about this is the product that I want to make or service I want to offer. These are the people that I want to attract to this entity. This is where I think I'm going to approach them. Either, it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, LinkedIn, and describe what you think this product means to them. From there, you can kind of refine. You want to make the language very simple of what it is you're selling, who your target market is, and why they're going to buy it. So that's the approach I would suggest that you take. And you can, there's lots of software out there now that you can speak into a device that will write down everything that you say, and you can upload that into a document and just kind of play with it. That brings up another point that's not on this slide, I don't think, but AI is now a tool for you to use. There's all kinds of platforms out there. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. From an SBDC standpoint, we suggest that you use it as a tool. Do not use it as your guide. I have people tell me, well, ChatGPT told me to do this. Well, that's not who's running your business. You are running your business. But if you're looking for, I need to say this in a different way, or I'm trying to write 5 posts this week and I don't know what to say, but here's kind of the general idea of what I want to say to my customers. That's a great usage for AI. There's lots of AI built in now. So you may not realize that you're using it, but the system, if you're online, you're using AI, whether you realize it or not. So it can be helpful. I would just say read it with caution. What it gives you back may not be accurate, and your knowledge of the market is going to inform what you put into AI and what you get out of AI. So so your product, why is it of value? This is a helpful guide, and we do have other tools through other business planning software that can help you do like a decision-making tree on what the product is and who it's targeted at and why it's of value. And I'm going to point out, it's called Growth Wheel, and it's available to you online after working with an SBDC advisor for free. Is there a good market that when you identify the niche where your product fits? What do you offer the market that's not already there? Are you offering better pricing, more convenient location, better smell, longer lasting smell? I've got some soaps that have been smelling for 4 or 5 years and I love it. Do you offer better customer service, immediate shipping, no question returns, support at the IRS office? I don't know. Social, what's the return on investment socially, financially, environmentally for your customers that are buying your product or service? So those are some things too. You want to be able to differentiate your product or service from the rest of what's already out there. Are there enough people that will purchase your product or service? We have market research in certain areas that can tell you how many are already out here doing what you're doing. It may not get down to the specific product that you want to sell, but it will give you a good idea of is the market saturated? Sometimes it doesn't matter. If the product or service is good enough, you may supplant the leader in that market. But, if you've got a lot of competition, a lot of people who are doing very similar things in the marketplace, you've got to decide what makes me unique, that makes my product the preferred one in the marketplace that people are going to want to buy. So identifying who your ideal customer profile is, who would look at your product and say, that's what I need. I need to buy that. Where are they? How many of them are there? What are their buying habits? Are they loyal? A light or heavy user? So difference between a light and heavy user. If you're buying a car, probably be a light user because you don't purchase a car very frequently. But if you're buying, let's say you're buying bread, you're a heavy user because you're buying that 2 or 3 times a week or once a week. I don't buy that much bread, but is the product needed or is it a splurge? So a splurge. In my market, I make, I sew products and many of the products are for equestrians. So my ideal customer profile is a woman. She's between 25 and 65. She rides horses. Doesn't matter what discipline she's riding in. I sell in person primarily to that person in the Central Virginia region. There's a pretty sizable market. They're not huge, but they spend a lot of money. Horses are very expensive.
Most people spend money.
Yes. Especially on their horses and on their dogs. What are their buying habits? I have developed several very loyal customers who know what I produce, know how I produce it, and who say, can you make me this custom? So it's a splurge, really, the products that I sell. Yours may be a need, but that it's all identifying, what's your ideal customer profile. And I know where my customer lives.
Sound like you've got a list. You know them on an individual basis.
I know some of them I know the key players in the market that can get me in front of.
The influencers.
Yeah. So, researching, meeting with people who say, I'm a year out, I think I'm pretty early in this, I think it's probably too early to talk to you. No, that's great. Having a long runway before you start your business, or at least some runway in where you can do research, identifying, is there a need for this product that I've got in mind? Through your research, you may develop the product to a point where it doesn't look like what you originally had in your mind. But it's something that the market really wants to buy. How often are they going to buy it? Let's say with the newsletter, let's say, I'd like to see the newsletter quarterly. But then you have 90% of your people that you researched say, I'd like to see it weekly. Well, 90%, I'm going to do a weekly newsletter. How much would they pay for it? 9% of the people say, I'd like a subscription, an annual subscription for $150 a year, or I'll pay $20 a month and I can cancel anytime. So those kinds of research questions, you do want to ask sometimes uncomfortable questions like, what price would you pay? And I would leave it as an open-ended question because they may name a much higher price than what you thought you were going to produce your product for. If you're producing a product that is sold, for example, at the farmer's market, I would go out and shop. Or for accounting, bookkeeping, I'd shop and try to find out what the local market price currently is for those products. And in the instance of, if you've got a product that is significantly better than what's out there currently, then you use that price as a baseline and go from there. So, researching other like people out in the marketplace can also tell you, who's the competition, who are they, what are they doing, What are they doing well and what are they doing that's not very good? What you can get better sense of what it's gonna cost to start the business. You have time to decide, can I afford this? If I can't afford it right now, when could I afford it? What's at risk? You know, if your full-time employment is at risk, you might put the brakes on a little bit, but identifying how you're gonna evolve from full-time employment to get this business started is, researching that as well can be very helpful. And again, there's no right or wrong. You may decide this is not for me. I'm not gonna do this anymore. That's okay. You know what? People are making those decisions all the time. So don't feel bad if you decide not to pursue a business idea that you had. It's much better to stop before you spend any money at all on business. There are market research tools, again, through the SBDC, we've got access to some really expensive market research. Again, it's limited to some pretty big, like markets that they'll study. We do have access to another research tool. It's called SBDC Net. And through them, we can ask some pretty targeted questions. In fact, like they do geographical surveys of who else is offering what you want to offer in this geographical area.
Is that available online?
It's got to go through an advisor. The advisor requests it. It will talk about drive time, how far is a specific type of business that you're thinking about doing. We do, for the town and the county, we do a retail gap analysis through SBDC Net. And they will talk about different categories of what's available at retail. And if there's an overload or if there's a gap in the marketplace where you need businesses like that. And one that sticks out to me, hardware stores. I looked at it one year and it had, I thought, am I reading that number right? It was like the amount of retail business available through hardware stores in Culpeper was like double what the market need was. And as a result, some of the hardware stores did go out of business. This is back several years, but
SBDC revealed that.
the report revealed it. Yeah. And, maybe they could have stayed in business, but eventually it's the market conversations with actual potential buyers, and if you have a product that you taste, you smell, creates an experience, make sure that you bring that product so people can taste and smell it and tell you whether or not they like it or not. I've had people do like, they're a baker and they want to have a taste test. I encourage them to use a Google form with a survey that's anonymous so people can give their real opinion, and always include how much would you pay for this. So if you are a soap maker, CIC has a program with the Charlottesville farmers markets. If you want to have a booth for 1 week, one Saturday, it's either the booth fee or the booth fee is forgiven. So just the registration fee, and then I encourage people to do a QR code with a survey to get feedback on their products. So if you want more information on that, let me know. It's called the Launch Pad on CIC's website. Okay. That customer discovery never ends. Your product is going to evolve. So people sometimes don't like that, but the truth is you got to keep doing it throughout the life of the business. Okay. It's already 12:22. So routes to business ownership, starting new, franchising, taking over a family business or buying an existing business, and then part-time or full-time we talked about. Those are all routes to business ownership. The legal structure, you can have a conversation with an SBDC advisor about this. I would read about the pros and cons of, should you have an LLC? Should you have a sole proprietorship? We can help you. We've got a guide on setting everything up. So we've got a registering your business in Culpeper County guide that we can share with you that takes you through the whole kind of decision-making tree. We did a little research. 68% of businesses in Virginia are LLCs.
60%,
68.
which means that they're making under $50,000 to $60,000 a year.
Not necessarily.
They're paying a lot on taxes.
That's where you come in.
But it
And
is,
to help
but I don't think a lot of people realize that when you come in, and but the thing is, I'm only a bookkeeper,
Mhm.
and I say that. But because that is not something I technically be given advice on, but I've done a lot of studying about it
Mhm.
because of having my own business and changing over to an S corp and not having to pay all that taxes.
Keep in mind, though, that it's very easy to establish an LLC in Virginia, and so some of them may not be active. They may just be sitting there and people are paying $50 a month.
So
Keep them in.
okay,
Yeah, keep them in line. Yeah, corporations is a whole nother beast. And we do consult with corporations. We consult with small businesses per the IRS definitions or the SBA definitions. So you could have 500 employees and still work with the SBDC, depending on what industry you're in. So when you get to that level, you can still come and talk to me. All right. Things to remember. If you're on your own, you're working either as an LLC or a sole proprietorship, be kind to yourself. We have a tendency to beat ourselves up all the time about, I didn't do this, I didn't get to this. Give yourself leeway, take a breath, take some time off. Remember, we talked about hiring people for the skill set that you may not have or don't want to do. Know which temp services, there are a lot of fractional employees out there now, or services that you can hire at an as needed basis. And then, talking about adding an employee or using contractors, the IRS has very specific rules about who is an employee and who is a 1099 contractor. Be very careful of those rules. They're right on the IRS website about, if you are directing somebody's workday, they're an employee, technically. If you tell them you've got to be here at 9 o'clock and you're going to be here from 9 to 3, that's an employee. If you've got more than one person involved in your business, make sure you draw up an operating agreement. And this outlines, what are you responsible for and what are your partners responsible for? How the business is going to be split up if something, happens to you. What happens to the business if one of the partners disappears one day? Develop a policy for hiring. Again, you can use AI. There are guidelines that you can find online for hiring people and that kind of thing, but writing a job description, those are things that AI can be used for that really take a cumbersome task and streamlines it, and then you can edit it based on, your company. And then building a simple employee manual as well. There's lots of examples out there online that are not copyrighted, or you can use AI to create a simple employee manual. But people want to know what the rules are and what the direction is for within the company. So that's a good thing to do. Let's see. So as you're building your team, providing good management, recognizing maybe that you don't want to be in the leadership position. I've known people that they want to be in the product development area and they want to be in the sales area, but they don't necessarily want to be leading the company and making these overarching decisions for the company. So finding somebody who's willing to do that, that you can work with successfully and build a partnership can be an alternate to that situation. And again, a lot of times people use us as a sounding board. We have lots of advisors that have lots of business experience, and so I may connect you with someone else who I think might be a better guide for you if you've got a certain situation in your
Let me ask a
business.
question. How does SBDC relate to SCORE?
SCORE is another organization like us.
But you're two separate organizations.
And SCORE works with nonprofits. We don't, because we work in for economic development. So we focus on small business. And they provide long-term mentorship. So if you want a business mentor that's going to be with you for 5 years, you know, we do have some clients that will come in and meet with us twice a year on an extended basis. But if you want somebody to be there essentially on a monthly basis for an extended period of time, I would direct you to SCORE. Your professional advisors, so you definitely want to have a CPA, accountant, and or bookkeeper, an attorney, a banker. Attorneys, what I've seen, they typically want a retainer, which can be very expensive. There are some opportunities if you are looking for, you know, a referral or some very short advice, I will say, you know, you've got a situation that you need resolved. There is the Virginia Bar Association has like a half-hour consult for $35. You can talk to them about your situation and they can either tell you what the situation should be or will refer you to an attorney that can help you. Your insurance agent, you know, putting together a team so that you're not alone. I encourage my clients, you know, if you're writing a business plan and you're submitting it for a loan or a pitch competition, put your team on there. I mean, these are the people that are helping advise you. You're not alone. You've got your SBDC or SCORE or CIC counselors. You've got, you know, these other people that are supporting your business. So make sure that you include them as your part of your team. Marketing, we've done like lots of seminars on marketing. This can be a 2-day seminar, but, you know, take into account the demographics. We talked about who your target customer is. That's going to set where you market your product. There are lots of different ways that you can advertise your product and market your product. For people that are in person, you have to have an online presence. Your website is going to be used as maybe not selling through your website, but it is a verification that you are a real business. So I encourage people to think about having a website. You also want to have a Google profile because more people will see your Google profile than they will see your website. And that gets into this whole conversation of reviews and all that. But there's, you know, the old-fashioned marketing strategies can work as well. Networking, mailings, email newsletters are extremely successful for a lot of businesses, and using signage. But have somebody else look at the signage that you want to use. I see lots of people that develop a logo that you can't read on a sign, or they've got a sign that's a roadside sign that, you know, is 1 foot by 1 foot and nobody's going to be able to read it. So have somebody else proof what you're proposing to use as your marketing materials. Logistics. Some things that people don't think about is, you know, who's going to supply the things that you need for your business, whether it's an online program that you're going to use or something physical. particularly, you know, for goods and services, I've worked with a lot of food people who, you know, they just go to Walmart and buy jars. So we look online, there's lots of different wholesale places where they can buy online that saves them a ton of money on jars. Granted, now shipping is gonna be a higher cost, but you gotta weigh, you know, how much does it cost me locally? We always encourage people to buy local if we can. But, you know, looking at the full equation of where you're getting your products and services. Facilities management, I don't think probably applies to you guys yet. You know, are there people, for example, if you book, let's say you book 2 farmers markets in one day. And you wanna be at both farmers markets, you need somebody else who can sell your products at that other farmers markets. You need an additional table, you need a table drape or a signage that tells them that that's you at that farmer's market as well. So understanding those, trying to cover all the different bases there, at least thinking about them, if not doing something about them immediately. Safety, you want to make sure that I don't think you can get a website now that's not or not secured, but just being aware of your physical and your cyber safety is key. And then keeping up with your record keeping. I have a very small business. I use Excel. You know, I do an Excel spreadsheet for my inventory and my sales and purchases and all of that stuff. But there are systems online. There's one like QuickBooks called Wave that they do have a free version. I think they still have a free version. A lot of people use QuickBooks, and we have QuickBooks 101 and 201 tutorials through the SBDC. And I'm trying to think of what else. How you are taking money from people. So there's Square, there's Stripe, there's Toast. There's all different kinds of systems depending on how you want it to tie in with, for example, your website. So, or the type of business that you're in. So lots of discussion under, this is just an overview. I'm gonna skip this one here. Personnel right now is it's a topic that a lot of people are talking about because it's very difficult to find people to work. You know, if you want somebody part-time or on demand, it can be very difficult to find somebody. And again, like I said, we always recommend going local, but there are some, especially for marketing help, there are things like Upworks is a online platform where you can hire people through the internet to do work for you. And Upworks, I believe that's the system. It'll tell you how many jobs they've actually done. And will show examples of the work that they do. So you don't hire somebody blind. You can see, yeah, their work looks like what I want them to create for me. So there are some solutions for finding skills in the marketplace. Often there's not a lot of benefits that are offered to employees when you're first starting up, especially if you have part-time employees. We do have, there's an organization called SHRM, SHRM, that they specialize in personnel. And then Jason Ford at Goodwill, but he's also Virginia Career Works. There's lots of information out there that we can pull together around personnel and benefits and what's typically offered. Risk is one thing that people don't often look at. So you've got things like supply and delivery logistics. We had impacting that were tariffs were a big concern there. Your record keeping and accounting, making sure that that's up to date and accurate. Your IT, product and service management, if you've got any kind of like online order taking or, where you need to respond to customers online, you want to make sure that you do that very quickly. If there's a hiccup with your email service, those are some of the risks in your operations. Financial risk is, if you take a loan, they may want payment sooner than, or, more than what you actually had arranged for. And then, employee injury, illness, theft, third party liability, and then strategic risk of your customer is changing. Your customer is changing always. There are certain things that we need in the marketplace, but if you think about just a simple example of who are some of the top shampoo brands that you've seen over the past 20 years. You've got people on the shelf now that weren't there 2 years ago. So customers are demanding different things out of different products, and they're replacing people that have been there for a really long time. So risk is something that you do need to think about. I wouldn't dwell on it because as small businesses, it tends to impact all small businesses at the same time. Regulatory and environmental risk. I think other than bookkeeping, there's probably not a lot of regulations that you guys would be faced with. Other than the farmer's market, you have to make your own products rather than import them. So, and then is your business subject to seasonality, weather, security concerns, health concerns, etc.? Having a contingency plan is, you always want to have plan B in the back of your mind. You'll have a copy of these slides as well. So if you want to review anything or talk further with an SBDC advisor about anything on these slides, let me know. We've got about 20 minutes to talk about financing. I'm going to skip through some of this. So we talked about sources of funds. Friends and family for very small businesses tends to be, an early place for capital. Using your cash flow tactics. So optimizing the use of accounts payable. One of the things I read recently is people kind of delay issuing an invoice sometimes. You want to invoice people right away, because if you wait 2 weeks and then you give them 30 days to pay you, that's 6 weeks from when you produce the product for them. So making sure that your billing is timely. Grants, there's not a whole lot of grants out there right now, but there are some, and we can help you identify where they are. Angel and investment capital is typically for businesses that have been in business for 2 years or more. And it is businesses that want to sell their business. Honestly, the angel investors want their investment back fairly quickly. And so they're looking for businesses that are interested in selling their business. Strategic alliances, if you have someone who is selling an adjacent type product or service to you, and you can team up with them to supply, maybe you supply like a full suite of products to that business that then they one-stop shop and they're done. That can be a very effective way to grow your business and increase the source of funds. And then loans and lines of credit. We talked a little bit about that. You've really got to be in business more than 2 years to go to a bank, and CIC is available to help for brand new startups. Thinking about an exit strategy is helpful because, where do you want to be in 10 years with your business, or 20 years? Do you want to sell this business? Eventually, you might have in your mind, this is the bigger picture. So this is the start. And, by X number of years, I want to be out of this business. So preparing the business for sale could start even as you're starting up a business. It sounds a little odd, but we can also help you with an exit strategy, even though it may be very, very long term. Okay, so here you are. You've got all this information. You know what you're capable of and what's needed for running your business. You know how much money you're going to make from the business. You have personal buy-in from your inner circle. You have a realistic idea of where you can find money for your business to start it up. It's time to make a business plan. Why do you want to have a business plan? You want a tool essentially to keep you on track. And it may not take the form of what you think of as business plan, but we're going to look at a couple of different tools that you can use. So we call it a living plan. It's something that you shouldn't write and put up on the shelf. It should be something that you look at fairly regularly. This is the business plan I use. It comes from there's a book out there. It's called Traction. And it was written about 20 years ago. And the original purpose of this was to make sure everybody in the company bought into the founder's vision for the company. The way I use it and the way that other people that I've talked to and who have presented this to me have used it, I use it as my business plan. So I look at, what are the core values of my business? Where's my core focus? Where do I want to be in 10 years? So my 10 years looks different than your 10 years because I'm headed out the door to retirement much sooner than you guys are. But it's still, what do I want for this business? Do I want to sell it to someone? Do I want to bring in a partner? And do I want to be a silent investor or a silent partner in the business? What's my marketing strategy? What makes my business unique? So it makes you think through these things that we talked about today about why are people going to be buying my product or service over what's already available in the marketplace? Where do I want to be in 3 years? So what's the revenue and profit picture? What does that look like? 3 years down the road, do I see, multiple locations for my business? Do I see lots of employees and I am directing from the top? I'm not sewing anymore. I've got a bunch of people sewing for me. It's up to you how you envision the business. There's no right or wrong. It's all up to you. And then the second page of this plan is what do I need to do in the next year in order to get to that 3 and 10 year vision? So my 1 year plan is, 12 months down the road. What's my revenue and profit again? What are the things that I'm measuring? It could be number of customers. It could be number of sales. It could be a number of things. What are your goals for the year? So one of my goals for the year is to get my social media straightened out and post regularly. The rocks are things that you need to do that will take you more than 3 weeks to accomplish. So for example, if you were going to hire somebody to do your marketing, that would be a rock because it's going to take you much longer than three weeks. Issues are things like, my Instagram's not tied to my Facebook, so I can't use Meta to schedule all of my social media posts. That's an issue that I can fix if I just sat down and did it. But that's an example of an issue. So this plan I've used for 3 years. I find that it keeps me very focused on what I need to do. The first year I used it, I hit my 3-year revenue projection that I wanted to hit in 1 year instead of 3. So my goals now have increased over, I change this plan every year. I review it with my niece, who also went into business at about the same time, and she uses it. I don't think she uses it as much as I do, but we talk about our plans together and we kind of we get ideas from each other on how to do things better. So this is a business plan that you can use. The business model canvas is another. This is actually a one-page business plan that where you identify, these are very targeted answers to different questions. What problems are you solving? So that's your value proposition. What are the features that match your customers' needs? The second step, you decide what's your customer segment. The third is the channels. How do you reach your customers? Customer relationships. How will we get, keep, and grow customers? Step 5 is the key activities. What key activities does your value proposition require? Step 6 are your key resources, key partnerships. What are the most important costs in the business model? And then what is the revenue model? If you go online and you Google, search for business model canvas examples.
And this will pop up.
This will pop up and it'll show you actual, they're not real companies, but they are things that maybe students have worked on that show, who are the key partners for this business, who are the key customers, how do they reach them? So you can look for this online. If you want a blank business model canvas that you can work in, I can send you a copy that you can work on online. And again, anything that you use, growth wheel is the one I mentioned before when you saw all the different areas of business that an entrepreneur needs to address. That's something online that I can share with you as well. If you are going to a bank for a loan, those business plans won't work. You will need to have, the traditional business plan that's got the executive summary at the front for them. Plus, for any of these, you need to do financial projections and assumptions. So I do this for my business in Excel. This is the route. So if you have not registered your business yet, the first step you would do is go to the State Corporation Commission in Virginia, and you would register your LLC or your corporation or your sole proprietorship. Is called a fictitious entity. You would obtain an EIN number from the IRS. You don't pay for the EIN. It is free. You need to go up to irs.gov for that. You register, forget this beneficial ownership. That's no longer applicable. Go to the Virginia Tax Department if you are selling a product, because you will need to collect sales tax on that product and pay that to the state once a month. If you need a professional license, you would go to the Department of, I can't remember what all the acronym means, but anyway, this is another department within Virginia that you go there and it will give you a list of all of things where you need a professional license. Did you need one for bookkeeping? Okay.
Professional license? No.
Okay.
I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor.
Yeah, cool. If you're gonna hire employees, you would register with the Virginia Employment Commission, and you can register the exact same time with the tax department and the Employment Commission. You would obtain a business license, so the county of Culpeper does not require a license. If you're in the town, you need a license. If you're in the county, you just register your business, and you would register your business in the town as well. You set up a business bank account, get proper insurance for your your business, and we do have professional providers that work with small businesses. And set up some kind of record system to keep track of the finances in your business.